the game was different, right? The rules was different. The ball was different.
The Euro style is different in America.
The Euro style was a lot different than America.
That's the first time y'all seen that Euro step too, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay, so today on the EuroStepping, I am very honored to have Coach Jen Leedham from St. Francis College in Brooklyn. Coach Leedham is very experienced, got years and years of playing and coaching experience, and untold wealth of knowledge. Coach, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Coach, for those who don't know, can you briefly tell us about your the tail end of your playing history and then your coaching journey and how it's evolved over the years?
Yeah, so I went to I actually did a prep school year in Connecticut first in high school, and then I went to a Division II school, Franklin Pierce University it's called now, in New Hampshire, which is Division II. Played there, was a part of building a program. My senior year was super fortunate enough to play in the Division II National Championship, which was an amazing opportunity. Came up just short, and then after graduation in 2009, had the opportunity to either go play, but then my alma mater, my head coach at the time, Mark Swayze, got a coaching position at another school, and the athletic director called me and offered me the opportunity to come in and be a full-time assistant for 3 years, and they'd pretty much mentor me to be the next head coach of that program. So after weighing my options, I took the coaching route and kind of gone from there. I was an assistant for 3 years, which was a great experience. I learned a lot. And then I was the head coach for 4. So they did, it was right around the London Olympics 2012 is when I actually got named the head coach, which was a really cool timing for me. And then there for 4 years, had a great experience too. Some successful teams, coached in the NCAA, went to Sweet 16s, went to last 64 regionals. It was really cool. And then after my 4th year, I'd been there with my playing years over like 10 years. I kind of felt it was ready for a change. And one of my really, really good friends, who was actually a college teammate, she was a senior when I was a freshman, got the Wagner College head coaching job, Division I down in Staten Island, plays in the Northeast Conference. Mm-hmm. And she just had the position and asked me to come along. So I was there for 3 years. Loved the time there, learned a lot again as an assistant, Division I level, and then got asked 2 years, I think it's 2 years ago now. Yeah, I've been at St. Francis for 2 years. Linda Simino, who coached my younger sister in college at Division II in Caldwell, she was leaving Binghamton and going to St. Francis, and she just finished her first year at St. Francis, and she asked me to come and be her associate head coach. So yeah, I've been the associate head coach at St. Francis College for the last 2 years, and it's great. Awesome school, great people, love it over there. Brooklyn's awesome. So yeah, that's it.
No, that's an awesome journey. And being a assistant coach, head coach, associate head coach, there's a wide range of positions there. So I mean, the questions and stuff that we're going to go through today, I think you are a perfect candidate, especially walking the walk as well. So as I said, really fortunate to have you on the show today. Thank you. So first question, a vague estimate, it doesn't have to be a precise number, but how many international players would you say you've helped recruit to come and play college basketball?
Probably to play for me, 12. I think probably in 12. I think I've had about 12 players. Oh, yeah, around 12 play on my rosters. I think over the year, maybe a little bit more, between 12 and 15. I think helping in general, I'd say above 30. Okay,
nice. Okay, so definitely a lot.
And when I say like recruiting, I mean like lock the deal and they played for me, like recruiting in general, or I'd say over 50.
Oh, wow, okay. So yeah, and that's, and that's kind of, what it's all about. Thinking of those players, all, 50, let's say, let's start with the 12 that you recruited at your different stops. why did you feel it necessary, or why did you think it was beneficial to recruit those international players over domestic ones?
The one thing that I love about recruiting international players is they're a little bit maturer. I think in Europe, you know, it's different. You're deemed an adult at 18 years old. So it's a lot different, a lot more responsibilities. And I lived that. Like, I came from what I was doing at home and how I was living my life at home. And then when I went to prep school, it was extremely different. And I felt like I was just a lot more locked in of what my wants were and where I was going, rather than kind of the college experience. It's really different. So I think for me, what's been super important recruiting is, over the years, if you have a big freshman class, I think it's important to maybe balance a couple of international kids. And I also think it brings culture and diversity in different ways too. I think it's also great for a team camaraderie of seeing people like I've got friends on my teams that I've played with that are from Australia and all over, and it connects you and it allows you to kind of, even opportunities after school or within school. I know we have now kids that plan to visit their teammates when obviously things loosen up a little bit, but like go to Spain to visit their roommate that they've had for last year. I think it's a cultural thing, and I think it's just brings a different dynamic to a team also.
Nice. Yeah, we've had quite a few coaches on that have spoken about the maturity of having international kids, because they seem more focused, or they're a bit more hungrier in general. Not always, but the majority of the time. So yeah, that seems to be a really big thing. Now go. All right, so can you explain the process from start to finish when recruiting an international player?
Yeah, I think it varies, and it's actually been a lot different the last probably year or so. But typically, my head coach now at the time, she travels a lot, and I've also gone overseas, and I've gone and seen people and done home visits and met people. Whether it's through it's not, I wouldn't say it's generic, to be honest. I think it varies in regards to who the player is. Sometimes I've had, we've got very good contacts and some people that I really trust that could just call me up and be like, listen, this kid, you've got to go get her. Like, she's a steal, or she's absolutely going to help you program. And I have a couple of those people that I really, really trust. So no matter what, I'm going to follow that lead right away. There's other people where I've gone over. I actually went over last October, I think 2019, to the UK, and I actually went to see somebody else play and ended up seeing another kid who was a Spanish girl playing in England, and she signed and she played for us this year. I know, we've gone, my boss goes to European Championships, she's gone to the Thailand World Cup, she's out feet on the ground actually seeing these kids play. And then we've got, right now at St. Francis, we have this year, upcoming year, we're going to have a kid from Australia. We had a Spanish kid. We've got 2 girls from Hungary, a girl from Serbia. So we're pretty worldwide and diverse in the European culture. So I think it depends, but a lot of it is people, different connections, and then kind of just following that with calls, with Zoom calls, whether it was FaceTime, WhatsApp, whatever it is, and kind of just finding out what their wants and what their needs are. And everybody's been really different. We have a girl on our team who's represented, which we had Rookie of the Year last year, who represented Serbia, the under 20s, and has got a call up to go to training camp with the national team for the women's national team for pre-Olympics. And then we've got a girl that was Rookie of the Year from Hungary who was in the World Cup. And then we also have a girl that played 3-on-3. So it's really different. It's not, I wouldn't say this is the right way for you. I think it's what they want and what they're looking for, and kind of it worked with us and what we kind of offered, and it's about the big picture and the whole fit, and it's definitely a journey. I think more so now, there's more communication, there's more conversations, especially because there's no visits right now too. So I think that's a big thing, because I know for my parents, it's about easing your mind too, of you're sending your child, your baby, to another country, and I know that was really daunting for my parents. And my parents still live in the UK, and the 3 of us are over here. So I know how tough that can be for a parent. And it's besides, it's not just the player, it's also, you know, the parents involved. It's a whole package deal type of thing.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. You know, there's multiple avenues to being recruited, and definitely getting seen and situated. So yeah, recommendations definitely is a strong one. And you know, I guess another element, which brings me on to my next question: how valuable is highlight tape? Like, how much influence does a highlight tape have on you as a coach signing a player?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think to showcase your talents. I also personally prefer, and I know this is preference to everybody, like I like to watch games too. Like I think highlight films are great and they show, like, especially, you know, if you've got a specialty, like if you're a really good shooter and things like that. But I think even if you've had like a few good games, like we'll sit as a staff and we'll watch games of someone coming in, or even kids we've signed, like we want to see film of them and how they're doing and stay current with them. And even though they've signed, like I think the more footage you have, the better it is. And I think especially I think a lot of people over here struggle to understand the levels in certain countries, and I think that's the hardest thing, to be honest, because I think people get focused on, oh, do you play for your country and do you play for your national team? And I think that's a big thing, but that's like really hard to do. There's only 12 people in that spot. I mean, and think of all the kids that get recruited over here that nobody, you know, there's a ton of kids that don't represent Team USA. Doesn't mean they're not good. And I think people still, I think that over here we're becoming a little bit more aware of it, but I don't think people understand how popular basketball actually is in Europe or Australia. You know, it's I wouldn't say it's a similar level to the States. It's obviously different, but there's a lot of talent overseas for sure.
Definitely agree with that. Definitely. What would be the best way for an overseas or an international player to get a coach's attention like yourself? You know, how would an international student get themselves recruited?
Yeah, see, it's funny because I have a really strong opinion on this, and I think it's because I've been an international student. I think the hardest thing is realizing what level you're at. And you know, I've spoke to a lot of people, and I think you get caught up thinking D1. And I mean, my sister, she's representing Great Britain. She's unbelievable. She went to Division 2 and she's still drafted by the WNBA and all that stuff. I think a lot of people get hung up, and just to be quite open and honest, I do struggle with kind of this area because people talk about different people that have gone certain areas, and I feel it's also dependent on what you want. Do you want to go in and impact somewhere right away, or do you want to learn and do it at the highest level? Because now St. Francis Brooklyn is absolutely amazing, and these kids have come in that we've had from overseas and had a massive impact on our program, and they've played a lot of minutes. But we don't have, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say we have the same money and we operate the same program that Oregon does. It's very different. It's a whole completely different level, and it's a whole completely different ballgame. And I think it's for the kind of getting attention. I think the one thing that you can do is probably the worst thing to do is just send a mass email to a lot of people. Like, I think a lot of people do that. I think a lot of coaches talk. So if I'm talking and I think like, oh, if I speak to my friend who's coaching, you know, a couple of levels above me at like JMU or whatever, and they're emailing me and I'm emailing them, and I'm like, do they not know what level they are? Like, what's the deal? Yeah. And coaches call and ask because they want to know, like, you know, who is this? And I think sometimes you think the more you get out, the better off, but I don't necessarily think that. I think you have to really have people in your corner that kind of know your level and what you're doing, because there comes this like misunderstanding of, well, can they play at our level? And I don't think they know if they can play at their level. And sometimes it's a risk, and some kids go higher and then it's like they get disappointed with what has been recruited. And to be honest with you, what I think is an awesome thing for an international student that not a lot of people talk about is going to prep school. Boys do it a lot, but girls don't. A postgrad year at a prep school is unbelievable. I mean, my sister coaches at a prep school in Marianapolis, and this is no plug by any means, but if you don't find somewhere that you feel is the right fit, she had a kid that went over from Ireland, Brona, and she played for her in prep school, did a postgraduate year, and she went into the Patriot League and played for Holy Cross and was Rookie of the Year. And I think that year to climatize and kind of have you feel your way and kind of be recruited feet on the ground on a regular basis makes a big difference.
See, now I love the fact that you brought it up, but we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get there. But I love the fact that you brought that up because it is very interesting, the different entry levels and where best to go. So if they're, I think everyone, especially on the boys side, a kid makes a three and he dunks the ball once in a game and he's like, Coach, hey, I'm ready to go to Duke, man. Hey, tell Coach K I'm ready. And it's like, hey, there's a lot more to it. So, understanding the entry level and kind of to piggyback what you said in terms of, are you going to be do you want to go to a bigger program where you have a less of a role? Or do you want to go to a smaller program where you have a bigger role, more minutes and stuff like that? So yeah, I think you're correct in terms of the understanding of where they are is very difficult for them to comprehend and then, put the emails, as you said, to email out or to contact the correct coaches. So I don't want to get too stuck it because this is, it's a great topic, which we're going to explore in a second. What should a freshman expect coming into a college program? It was just take NCAA 2 and 1 at the minute, or 1 and 2. What should they expect?
I think time management is a big thing, and I know that sounds really cliche, but it is. And I think the big thing for a freshman, no matter what, everybody for the most part is coming from their teams being the best player. So I think it's time management, because you think, okay, there's this, but then there's classes. It's been a little different this year because classes are online, so it obviously is a little easier to navigate. But fitness is a huge thing. Fitness is where freshmen really, really struggle a lot. I think the fitter you are, the easier it becomes for you. And I just think, in general, that balance can be really overwhelming. And the thing with freshman year is there's peaks and valleys. The highs and lows of freshman year for anybody, but internationals in particular, is it's you're going to get challenged. There's going to be great days. There's going to be really tough days. And I think ultimately your love for basketball is what you really need to love it, because that is what ultimately carries you through it all.
Nice. Okay. So time management is definitely a big one. Being fit. Now, how would you, and I had this conversation with another coach as well, how do you know, or how can you gauge how fit you are as a freshman coming in? Because the summer before you go out, you want to look nice and trim or whatever, blah blah blah. You get to training camp, you get to preseason, and you're dying as a freshman. So how do you gauge it?
I think just asking questions. I think a lot of freshmen come in and just kind of are very there's very few that ask what do you need from me? I think that's the best thing. I think a lot of coaches have certain, I don't know if testing is the right word, but some people do beep tests, some people do times, miles. Find that information out as soon as you can. And kind of, every coach has their little thing that they want to do. I know we have a mic and drill that we do that every single nearly before every single practice. The mic and drill is what we start with, and it's a series of layups that they have to be able to make in a row in a certain amount of time, and they do it with a partner. Now, we tell our freshmen about it, but majority of them come in and they're not ready for it. But are you ever ready? No, it's going to be hard. It's freshman year. I think anybody that plays college basketball looks back and laughs at the freshman year oh my gosh, what the heck was I doing? Maybe Paige Beck is the only one that's not going to do that, but I don't know. I think you have to go through that, because that's what is part of your journey and your growth. But I think ask questions, and good leadership always helps freshmen. Lean on your seniors or your upperclassmen, and don't be afraid to kind of fail. That's part of the journey.
Nice. I do. Yeah, that's great advice. Love it. See, now we're getting into the crux of things. Now we're warm, okay? So there seems to be a stigma with junior colleges, especially with overseas student athletes. I've tried to help players get to junior college or whatever, and everyone's first option, or the majority of kids I've spoken to, are like, oh, I don't want to go to junior college. Oh, I want to go to a 4-year school, blah, blah, blah. Like, can you talk about that stigma? What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the stigma. I think my opinion of it is, over here, junior college is associated with kids that have to go to junior college because they don't have the grades. And I think, to be quite frank and real, I think people associate kids who don't have kids who don't have good grades are bad, not bad people, but like not focused, not driven. And I think there's way more to it. I think there's some fantastic players that have gone to junior college and had unbelievable. I think people see it as a secondary option, and it's not necessarily the way. And I think there's some unbelievable coaches in junior college. I think the level of play, I've gone a few times to their like kind of whole national tournament that they have, like whether it's in Kansas or wherever, and the level of play is phenomenal. And I think it is unfortunately a negative stigma because of the great things, in my opinion.
Definitely. And you do get some, and I guess at every level you have bad programs, bad instructing, whether it's a Division 1 or a junior college or an NAIA. If you go to a bad program, you go to a bad program. So, It doesn't really matter, what level it is. So, and following on that, so, not necessarily comparing, but your views on junior college versus prep school versus like the academies that we have, or like IMGs or the ones that we have in Europe. What would you say your preferential recruitment pool is? Would you prefer a kid that's gone to junior college or a prep or an academy?
Honestly, it varies, and I know this is such a cop-out answer, but it does vary on year to year, because I think when I was at Wagner, we got a point guard that was the real fit for us at that time. We needed someone to come in that could be a leader, was a little bit older, and she was really good for where we were at with that program. And I love her to death. She came from Butler. She did a phenomenal job. And then I think we've just got a transfer in from Robert Morris at St. Francis Brooklyn. She's going to have a major impact. I think it depends on the needs of your program for me and where you're at. Like we were really young, so we were coming in, we were building, and we needed someone to come in that could kind of like already have some playing experience. I think it really depends where you're at. And I think that's also super important for when you're being recruited, to see like what you want to do, like who's ahead of you. I don't think a lot of people do that. They just see like, oh, I've got this and I'm going to go here. And I know through my, I hate to talk about myself, but my experience personally, I had an offer from another school that was probably more successful at the time, but there was this junior point guard that was going to play ahead of me most likely for 2 years, which was going to limit my playing time. And that's something that I couldn't really envision myself being a bench player and playing 10, 15 minutes. And okay, you can look at the other side, but work hard, go take a spot. But she was super established and was an all-conference player. And me going in as a freshman behind the ball, I don't know if that wasn't the right move for me, in my opinion. And I think a lot of kids don't look at people on roster at the time. And then they go in and it's like, I think, especially at Division 1, we have 15 scholarships. Our job is to recruit over what we have to an extent, but it's also about position. If we have a senior post player next year, we want to bring in a post player in this 21 class now, so she can kind of play behind her for a year and learn, and then kind of blow the ropes. And I think it's different. I think transfers can be a big thing with scholarships. I think it really is dependent on where the program's at and also the preference of the coach. I know some coaches who have completely recruited just from, look at Nevada. He recruited a lot of transfers and it's been really successful. You have kids. I know my friend at Towson has got quite a few junior college players and that they won the CAA like a couple of years ago. Like there's different strategies work for different people. And I think there's no right way to do it.
Okay, well, I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Yeah.
So if, let's say you're advising a 17, 18-year-old, let's say coming out of England, and they have got the option of junior college or prep, especially, considering how highly you're speaking of prep, what would you then say, what would you advise them?
Well, the big thing with prep is you don't lose a year of eligibility. So that's like the difference maker. You have to weigh your options. The thing with prep is it's going to be high school, might be a little bit lower level, not on the men's side, because the men's prep school, I mean, some of those prep schools, they have to probably be college teams, to be honest. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I think, you don't lose your college eligibility. You only get 4 years. And for me personally, like you got to make the most of your first 4 years. I personally would advise someone to go to prep over JUCO if I was an international kid.
Okay, thinking of eligibility. So yeah, I understand that.
I think money plays a factor too.
Okay.
Because I think it depends. I don't know if all prep schools offer full scholarships. So like it depends on like your money situation too. I don't think they do. So that's also going to be a factor. And I think it's what works for you. If you're from a fortunate background where you can kind of pay a $5,000 to $10,000, then I wouldn't affect my eligibility. But if you're just looking to get over here and you don't really have the money, then JUCO is a good way too.
Nice. Okay. Nice. Within your experience and looking at the 50 players that you've had a hand in helping, how hard or easy would you say it is for an international athlete to integrate into a program? Like how, what's the challenges behind it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've seen it where it's been really good and I've seen it where it's been difficult. I think the big thing is being open-minded, and that's a really good question. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like my sister played in France and comes back here and she does things and I'm just like, you're so weird. Like people are so different. And I think if you can have if there's an immature team, I think that at times can be problematic, just being quite honest. And I think, that comes from how the team is, how they're received. And I think I would hope to think most coaches now with Zoom and the way things have gone, that they speak and they are engaged. I know our kid who's coming in from Australia, she's had multiple conversations like with our players already. So I think, and that, that helps to your point of maybe when you're getting recruited, if I was an international student now, I would ask if I could talk to people on the team. If I wasn't doing a visit, I would ask because at the end of the day, the players are living it, and I would, sit and have conversations and get to learn. I mean, it's sometimes hard integrating just American kids together anyway. I mean, everybody's different. There's different things. That's the beauty of life, of learning and being around people who are from different backgrounds. I think that's probably one of the best things about St. Francis Brooklyn is our diversity. But I mean, I think communication's key in that. I think being open-minded, and it's also really hard. I say this to everybody, college is what you make of it. Like if you are far from home and you sit in your room and you make no effort, you could be in New York City, you could be in San Diego, California. Like if you don't make an effort to branch out, you're not going to enjoy it.
Definitely.
You get out what you put in, for sure, in all areas.
So kind of same question, but like thinking of yourself and your experience when you went through your college experience and you being an international student athlete, what did you do? What was you proactive about to try and integrate yourself into the community and to get the most out of your college experience?
Yeah, I think you just have to you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, it's hard. Like, you're in situations where you don't know people. You have to let people in. Like, especially as an international student, you're really far away from home. Like, that's your family now. Like, that's the people that you rely on. Like, your parents are so far away. Like, if something goes wrong, like, and I think that comes back to recruiting. I think I was really, really lucky that my coach was super caring, but we had a really good group of people on the team that we really took care of one another. We looked out for each other. I mean, we weren't the greatest of friends. I think that's the hardest thing. It's a bonus if everybody's really close, but I think girls, obviously, you're going to annoy each other at times. There's going to be problems, but like it's the same way with the family. Everybody gets annoyed with their brothers and sisters. You know, it's you have to be open-minded, and you have to put yourself out there, and you have to be a good communicator. And if you're struggling, I think it's okay to ask for help and articulate that you're struggling. Like, I think it's really different. A lot of kids from internationally come from overseas where they play pro and they just are told to get on with it. And that's really different over here. Like, that college atmosphere is more like a family. And I think you have to rely on people and not feel like you're bothering people. And I learned that, to be honest with you, the hard way early on in my career, but then I lent on my teammates, and then you pay it forward when you become in that junior senior role, and it kind of keeps going on. I think that's part of like that college atmosphere too, is what makes it so great. Like, your teammates and playing basketball, like going to school, like those 4 years, they're supposed to be enjoyable. They're supposed to be the best times of your life. And I think that's why, you know, I hope everybody gets that experience, but the reality is they don't. Yeah,
it's true. Nice. What is typically covered in a full scholarship, or a half? Well, I know at Division 1 you have to give, if you give $1, you have to cover everything. I think the rule is. So what's typically covered in a scholarship, a D1 scholarship?
Yeah. So for us, it covers everything. They get the books paid for, they get all the gear, they get a stipend per month, all the academics, all the, like, yeah, they don't, I mean, our players pay for their flights, but I do know that some schools can pay for flights also. So it's dependent on like money, I'm pretty sure. Some schools do cost of attendance, which a lot of people aren't aware of, which is like a bigger stipend, which is like a lot of the higher schools do that. Not every Division 1 school does do that. And then Division 2 is a little bit different. I think maybe some schools package where it can be like you can get an international or an academic package. So it's like they can break up their scholarship money, but technically you still end up being on a full ride. It's just you might have to maintain like a 3.0 GPA or something academically to keep that scholarship, which from my experience, most of our international students are extremely good academically.
Nice. What about things like insurance?
Yeah, I think that's school dependent. That's a really good question, because not a lot of people ask about that. And our school does have insurance for our players. But I always, because me personally, what I did and my parents did for me, and I always advise anybody who does this, we have insurance for them like through basketball. So like if you're basketball, if you get hurt or whatever, you have the doctor, but like if there's anything, say you're off on a weekend, say it's spring and you have the weekend off and you're going somewhere like with your friends and God forbid something happens, you're doing something daft or whatever, or acting a fool, or even you going for a hike and you roll your ankle, whatever it is. Like I always got travel insurance so that like we had that to cover, because I know if something happens like outside of those things and you're, let's be real, you're coming here for an experience also, like you're going to go and do things, and I think people should do that. And whether it's a flight to Florida or whatever, like you have an unbelievable opportunity, and there is time within the season for where you have downtime to go do those type of things. I think the school for us does cover a big portion of insurance in regards to playing and stuff like that in season, but like we me and my sisters, all three of us when we came over here, we also did get like travelers insurance, which was like a little bit of like backpack insurance, you know what I'm talking about? Like it's like, I don't know, you know, it, just something like that. Like it's a little bit extra money, but like it definitely covers you. Like I know my sister did something where she was like doing a handstand and like fell through like a glass mirror and had to like go to hospital, but like she had this insurance, so she was like fine.
I don't even want to ask the question. College nights,
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so insurance covers you during season or basketball activities?
From my understanding, it's basketball activities.
Okay. So if
and
you
I know there's also like if you're sick, a lot of schools have like, well, all schools have like a school nurse and like a health center and those type of things. But yeah, it's basketball activities, like that stuff. And like obviously you have a trainer, but like I said, like if you're somewhere that's not even close to school because you're visiting someone and something happens, like the school's not going to really cover that.
Okay, cool. So
from my knowledge at my school, I mean, it might be different elsewhere.
So always checking, always important to check about the insurance, what type of insurance and what it covers you for. That you just never know. And we've had a couple of individuals on the show already, a couple of, you know, former athletes, and, you know, they've spoken about heart conditions and eye conditions and all the rest of it. And, you know, it changing their life, so to speak. So yeah, very important that your insurance is sorted out and knowing what you're covered for. So yeah, thanks for that. Also, talking about injuries and scholarships, can you lose your scholarship from getting injured? Uh-oh.
No, technically no.
Okay.
However, at Division 1, if you have a career-ending injury and you've signed a full scholarship, say something happens to you and you have this scholarship, there is something where you can medically retire, and the NCAA, I know a lot of people don't talk about this. If you like, it has to be career-ending, like you're never going to play again, but you're still committed and you want to finish out your studies over here. There is something called like a medical retirement where the NCAA does cover that scholarship for you because you've had like a career injury, you're never going to play again, whatever it is. Like I know a couple of kids in my last 5 or 6 years have had that happen to them. So there's that. And then, I mean, it's a 1 year thing. And technically, like, if you're breaking rules and you're like not really, it's different. I think men is a lot more cutthroat than women. I've never really been a part of a program that's taken a scholarship away from someone because they've been injured. I've never had that happen. Never experienced that. I can't speak on everybody else's program. And now scholarship people, this is somebody else the other day, scholarships technically are on an annual basis. You sign a scholarship every year. It's not a 4-year scholarship. And I think people don't understand that. But through my experience in the programs I've been involved in, it's really, you'd have to be doing some really wrongful things to lose your scholarship.
Okay,
it's
so knock on wood, you know, you were the right,
through my experience,
right program, and, and you know, they look after you if you get injured and stuff like that. And then the medical retirement, I didn't know about that. That's great information, and said that's the, you know, why we have you on the show. It's just to you drop those gems, man. So yeah, that's really cool to know. Moving on to, you know, more about the hands-on stuff. So now that, you know, let's say a player gets recruited, what does a typical college day consist of for, you know, let's say one of your athletes?
Yeah, I think this in-season and out-of-season is a little different. So out-of-season technically is kind of more in like summer and pre-season pre-season, it's it's per week, so it depends on every school, does it different, but you get 8 hours a week in pre-season and post-season. And then I think it's 42 days before your first game you get to start. And you get I think it's 30 practices in 42 days. I'm not the compliance person on so I'm honestly not, that might not be right. It's something similar to that. Typically we start like end of September, because we usually open up November. So it's we have 4 hours on the court. So what we'll do, when you're out of season, any holidays that happen, so like now we're going to be moving into postseason, like I think at the end of March, and if we have Easter break, because we're out of season, we're not allowed to do anything on Easter break.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah, so like you can only do stuff on like over Christmas. Like Christmas we can practice because we're in season, but when you're out of season,
Gotcha.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when we start, like, so it'll vary, like, so we're cranking out postseason at the end of the month, and we'll do an hour session. We'll do like 45 minutes. So we get 4 hours of the basketball. So we'll do 45 minutes, 5 days a week, or if we're short of hand like that. And that's individual sessions. So that's kind of, ball handling, shooting, on the move. That's kind of position based, and then based around like stuff that we do within the team of different things. And then some of the girls will play on their own. That's like captains. Sometimes we'll have them come in and play on their own. They're allowed to do that. That's out the hours. And then they have 4 hours of like conditioning and lifting. So that's typically that's like an hour. When you're out of season, you get 2 days off a week. When you're in season, you get 1 day off a week. And in season, it's pretty hectic. I mean, it's like classes in the morning. Typically a lot of girls 9 through 12 are in classes. We practice Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, we go 1 to 4, and Tuesdays and Thursdays we were going 10 to 1. So we don't use all that time. We just usually the girls come in a little bit before, shoot, and after. And then obviously we still lift in season twice a week. We'll do twice a week lift, and then we'll do a recovery day of stretching and stuff.
Nice.
And then obviously film. When you're in season, you get 20 hours a week, which doesn't sound really like a lot, but it's, it's still a lot. Like, yeah, between film and then like also like travel and stuff like that. So I say time management's really important, because especially this year, I mean, we played back to back, so that was crazy. And we played the same team, so we would go on the road. Say we were playing at Bryant, we opened up with Bryant, we went up to Bryant, Rhode Island the night before, played the next day. We couldn't have any shoot rounds because we weren't allowed to do shoot rounds this year. It was really different this year, but typically we'll play in conference in a regular year. Saturday, Mondays is what we do.
Mm-hmm. So sidebar, kind of like away from that, how come you guys weren't allowed? I know the COVID protocols and all the rest of it, but how comes if you was playing a game on the same court, then why weren't you allowed to shoot around on the same court, kind of thing?
Yeah, honestly, I don't really know. I think it was just more the time that we kind of were starting, and things that was when we were starting. We go from Bryant, we go from Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and then we go all the way down to Pennsylvania, and all these states were different rules. So I think at the time, at the beginning of it, it was just easier just to kind of keep it generic and say that's what it is. Because there was also like a travel limit. Like if you were closer than 150 miles, like you couldn't go the day before. You could only stay over in between them. So there was a real big protocol that was just that's what it was going to be. Let this dog outside 1 second.
No worries. What type of playing statuses are there? We've heard about red shirts. We've heard about medical red shirts, grey shirts. Can you explain how all of those work? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, this is not my area, but so I know if you come in and you aren't academically eligible, I think you can practice. Mm-hmm. You can practice with the girls, but you can't travel. If you transfer, that rule is supposedly changing. That rule was different this year when people transferred. They were allowed to play right away this year, so there was no sitting out because everybody got the year back this year. Everybody was allowed to play, and supposedly there's going to be a vote on transfers this summer about people not having to sit if a one-time transfer and stuff like that. So that'll be interesting. That was denied last year, but it's supposed to go through this year. And I think like we had a kid transfer mid-year, and she sat out, couldn't play, but she practiced. I'm not sure. I've never been experienced with, I know people who have kind of played and gone through everything and suited up, but then haven't really played that much. And it's like a minutes, like how many games you go in or whatever towards the end that you kind of can get that year back and you have to apply for it. And then there's the same thing with, obviously, if you get hurt with so many games, if you only played so many games, you can get that year back too. Like I know a kid who played for us, redshirted academically because of her first year. So she practiced, but didn't travel with us. Then she played 2 years and then she got hurt. And then now with COVID, she's going to get like another year. So I think she's going to have like 7 years in college or something.
Yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy.
So, and I think that stuff is like not constantly changing, but is really like dependent on the person. So I think if anybody's in that, I think you should also always vouch for yourself and ask lots of questions. I know, like, especially at our level, we just have a compliance person that's like in charge of that. And honestly, that's my go-to person too. Like, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, act like I know like all the ins and outs of the rules. Like I know the rules to recruit and all that stuff, but they're constantly changing. And I think that's a great thing about most schools too, is that compliance person really advocates for the athlete and is super helpful, especially too now with transfer and the transfer portal as well. Like you just can ask them and say you want to transfer. So it is different. But at the schools, I mean, we have a girl coming in that I think, depending on how her progression goes, because like I told you about the senior post, but we've already had a conversation recruiting her that depending on her growth and how she moves forward, we could technically redshirt her, but if she's ready to play, then we'll play her. So it's kind of like the options there. We'll see how it works out for you, because she's not been playing basketball that long. So we'll just kind of take it day by day. And obviously at Division 1 you have summer school and all kinds of, there's a lot more, Division 1's a lot more intense than Division 2 in my opinion. Okay. From a management standpoint of summer school and the hours and the kind of time of things.
Okay, I like it. Looking at grades now, how important is your academics from being recruited and being in school? Is there more importance for a international student to have better grades? And how does that work in terms of allowing you to play?
Yeah, I think, grades are definitely important. I think you never want to limit yourself. So I think the better your grades are, the more opportunities you have. I'd say, I think the biggest thing, if I had to give any advice to somebody, is to get on top of that stuff right away. Like that is really stressful if it's left last minute. And a lot of the times, I think it's becoming a more regular occurrence. And I think that the Eligibility Center is a lot more knowledgeable of these things and have an understanding of different countries' education. So I think that's definitely something to be proactive with. And I mean, obviously like in international institutions too, like there's different schools, there's different levels. Some are more academic minded. There's different, what you want to study. I know there's certain programs that you need certain grades to get, like for some people do nursing, and I think you need to do certain things to be able to get into nursing and whatever it is. I mean, at the same time too, like you also don't need to know, but I think if you're somebody that academics is really important to, because that's, with internationals, I feel like some people really come in and already know what they want to do. Like the girl that we had come in this year, she already knows she wants to be a teacher. She's gone right into the education department and she's right in there. Whereas some kids come and like, I was like this, I just wanted to ball out. I just want to play basketball. And I think just kind of in regards to that recruiting process of knowing what's important to you, but grades are really important. I mean, you never want to limit yourself. So you don't want to be in a situation where you find the right fit and it's really great for you, but you don't have the grades to get in. And that's dependent on every school. Like some schools look at SATs, ACTs, like some people, there's obviously the sliding scale with the eligibility center, but then some schools do have their own requirements to get into school too.
Yeah. Can you play or practice but not be academically eligible?
Can you play? Or you can't play. You can practice.
Okay. I have a really.
You'd have to redshirt. So like, I don't think, from my experience, like we did it my first year at Wagner, and there's also a lot of things you can do to try and get like. You can take a couple summer classes. Like if you're 1 credit short, like I know like that social science can be like a little bit problematic for a lot of international students. Okay. And I know people have taken like 1 credit classes, it's helped them. I think there's a lot of different avenues and different ways to kind of summer school or different classes that have helped, but it's obviously dependent on the school too. But yeah, you can, I mean, to my knowledge, if you are academically ineligible, you can still practice. It depends because there's a partial qualifier and a non-qualifier too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can be like a partial qualifier or a non-qualifier. It's those are questions that like you just need to ask, and like because it's really different from person to person because of the way like America has a really generic way of like you do 4 years of this, 4 years of math, whereas I feel like especially in the UK, like GCSEs, like you kind of pick what you want to study, and then A levels you pick what you want to study, where it's not like that here, so it's really different. So I think knowing, like I know we're recruiting a young lady from England right now, and she needed to take a social science, and she's on top of it, and she's a 22, and she's like taking it right now, so she's not going to have any issues. But I think like, yeah.
Okay, so checking what you've got coming in and seeing how that works out. So yeah, if you're doing let's say a drama over a geography, you're going to struggle because you need that, that geography grade over, performing arts or drama. So yeah. It's I don't know about with the girls, especially at that age trying to go to college, but I know with the guys, a lot of the time, not all of them, I'd say about 40% but they just don't want to do well in school. Their goal is, hey, I just want to play ball. And you keep explaining to them, hey, you need your grades. You're like, oh yeah, but I've got a 40-inch vert, and you're like, it doesn't matter if you're not eligible. You're not eligible to play. So
100%. I think too, where it's different with girls, like girls see a bigger picture. Like girls don't think they're gonna play basketball forever. Like it's different in men's basketball. Like I don't think people are a little more delusional, but like every guy who's playing in college thinks he's gonna go play pro.
You can say delusional, it's fine. Yeah, they're absolutely delusional. I see it often. So it's really important that they understand that, hey, your academics, kind of like, exactly what you said, the overall bigger picture of, hey, it's not, the statistics show that there's a very small amount of athletes that get to go and play pro. And of those athletes who have, how many of those have extended careers? And of those with extended careers, how many of those have, generate enough income to sustain their living? So, all these things you got to take into account and understand that, hey, it's a, 1 in 10,000 chance of me being a pro that plays for plus 10 years and earns enough. I need to find another plan or have a backup plan just in case, my time elapses. So definitely a great point there, Coach. Appreciate it. This is really fun. I'm enjoying this and enjoying picking your brain and seeing you sweat on a couple of questions.
Seriously. Like, oh.
It's great. Last few coming up. What basic life fundamental or life skill fundamental should these student athletes be coming into college with?
You have to be solution based. I think this is really missing in life in general, but I think you're in a situation and you're coming over and you're far away from home, but like you have to find solutions. You have to like, well, what is it like? You can complain. Are you going to complain about it? Are you going to be in the situation, or like, say something comes up, you've got time management issues or something's come there, like what are you going to do? Like, find a solution. I think a lot of people come over, and even in general in college, like they just hope that it's never going to come to the surface of if they're struggling or what's going on. And I think you have to be solution based. I think you need a good support system. Like everybody says that, and I think it's so important. I think support system, and I think it's used a lot over here, but I think in life in general, outside of basketball, bigger than basketball, whatever you want to say, I think a healthy support system that people in your corner you can rely on is really important. I think that's the key to life. And I think you have to love basketball. I mean, you're in it. Like, you have good days and bad days, and like I wake up and I love my job, I love what I do, but like obviously it's challenging. You're around the same people all the time. Like, you have to know how to work with people. And I think at the end of the day, the common goal, you're all here for basketball, but like you have to love it and you have to be selfless. Like, you have to be able to, especially on a team, like I guess just you have to figure it out. It's not going to be easy. Like I tell people all the time, and like everybody says, well, I played AAU, or like it's really intense here. Like, no, there's nothing like college basketball. It's intense, and especially at like Division I level 2, like what people forget is like coaches' jobs are on the line. Like, that's a factor.
Yes. And
like, I love our girls, and our girls are unbelievable, and I love our team, but like we're supposed to get wins as college coaches. That's like just a fact. And I think you have to come in and your drive to be successful, and you've got to love the game. And I think anybody involved would say that. I'm sure you feel that about what you do. And
yeah, I agree. I think it sounds different coming from somebody who's walked the walk and talked the talk, and now in a position that you're in, being a college head coach. I think being solution based, and slightly funny because that's one of my personal goals, is that I always think, hey, solutions, not problems. Problems will always come and all the rest of it, but just in like real life, as compared to a game, you've turned the ball over, or you've just missed a shot. Are you gonna, flap your wings and drop your head, or are you gonna sprint back and get back in defense? And do you know what I mean? So it's, how do we solve this issue that's come along, rather than just, wallow in self-pity and stuff. So I really like that approach. Yeah. It sounds great. What type of relationship do coaches have with parents? And can a parent call you whenever they feel they need to and question you about issues like court time?
No, just kidding. I think it's depend for us personally. I think we have a pretty good relationship with most of our parents on our teams. I don't think there's in my opinion, there's no way a parent should be calling a college coach asking about playing time. However, like, we do things, well-being or concerns about that player, that their door, absolutely open line. Like, if you've got any issues, any concerns, even, and vice versa, like if we feel like there's something that's seriously going on and we're concerned, we preach family, we preach understanding and kind of being a family, and especially internationally. Like I said, it's a little different for me from my seat that I sit in, because I've lived it and I know how my parents, how they were and how hard that was for them. So I can kind of say, and I think we will, whether they walk into the gym on FaceTime, like my head coach is always like, hey, I know my head coach is super, super active on social media, whether it's Facebook, and like she allows the parents to kind of be friends with her, so she can post updates, whether it's like rookie of the week or whatever, and we'll give shout outs, and like parents will comment on that. Like she's cool with that. Like she's like that. I know some people like absolutely not. We're not like that. So I don't think a parent should really be talking about playing time now.
So a parent, what happens if a parent called you and like, hey coach, and they
really put me on the spot here.
The parents always start with something positive, like, hey coach, really love the job that you're doing with our daughter Lisa. Just wanted to know why she only played 2 minutes last game. What would be your response?
Me personally, I'd tell them that it's above my pay grade and they'd have to call the head coach, if I'm honest. But like as a head coach, like I mean, that happened. Obviously, I don't really want to talk about players that I've coached, but when I was in school, one of my friends, her dad would call all the time. And like that happens. Like people think that doesn't happen in college. Like that was when I was in college, and like, I mean, I just think, what do you have to do? You say the politically correct or the right thing to say, like, rather, this isn't an area I like to discuss with you. Like, I think, because it's hard too, as a college coach, to be honest. Like, your daughter's not playing 2 minutes, but like, you only see that, like, you don't know what goes into it and what's going on, like how she's practicing. Like, obviously it's earned for us. Playing time is earned.
Yeah.
And like, so if she's not doing a good job, if she's not focused in practice and she can't execute a scouting plan in practice, and she's actually just not even trying to practice, or isn't even like locked in and being the best version of herself, or whatever it is, or someone's just better than her, then, we say to our players all the time, like, your opportunity comes in practice. And I think a lot of players believe like, I'm not getting a chance in a game, but you get a chance every day in practice. And like, I think that's where too, like, the level is important, that what you want to achieve is to be really real with yourself. And I think that's really hard right now as a student athlete, is you come from being the best player in your high school program or whatever it is, and your parents think you're so great, and you are, like, you're recruited and people love you, but like, college is hard. Like, everybody's the best player, everybody's fighting, there's 5 spots, there's 200 minutes, and there's say 15 people. Like, you've got to put the extra time in, say, and even it happens too where you come in and this one person is so driven. I had a walk-on when I was at Franklin Pierce who just worked her butt off and was so hard working. She didn't get any scholarship money, and then by the end of her senior year, she was a starter, and she was like playing 32 minutes a game and earned a full scholarship. And you've seen those journeys, and that for me is, as a college coach, what you hang your hat on, because that's what it's about. Like, and I've said this to you before, what you put in is what you get out. Like, and you can't, I say to people all the time, you never look back. Everybody always look back and has regrets, and it's like, I should have done more. No one ever looks back and is like, oh, I wish I would have done less. I was going way too hard. Like, why did I do that? Like, people don't do that. And I think the parent thing is really difficult. But I think there's got to be a level of respect and understanding from both sides, for sure. But it's not something I enjoy dealing with, I'll be honest.
Fair enough. Nice. Okay. Kind of, cutting the parents some slack now, understanding that their, son or daughter, their daughter's going to be 5,000, 7,000, 3,000 miles away from home, 5-hour time difference, 7-hour time difference, whatever. What advice would you give that parent to kind of ease their concern about sending their child out into the, big blue world?
Yeah, I think that happens like in the recruiting process a lot. I think a lot of parents don't want to seem like they're super hands-on and like want to let their kids like be on themselves. And I think there's multiple conversations. I think asking to speak, and we do a lot of where we'll talk to the kid and we'll be on the phone and we'll talk and we'll set up calls, but we'll do multiple, if need be, whatever is good with the parent. Like we'll sit down and we'll talk and we'll give them the floor and be like, ask whatever you want to ask. And I think as a parent in that moment, when you do, I don't think it's wrong to ask for a sit down with a coach, even if it's multiple times, to go with questions. And I think the thing with my opinion is, I think European people, or even Australians, not necessarily European, I think we're very polite.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas I think over here, like a lot of parents will like put coaches under pressure and ask questions like, well, I've had all sorts of questions. Well, how long's left on your head coach's contract? Do you see yourself being here? Like, well, if she comes for 4 years, if you get a job in 2 years, like they ask like not invasive questions, but they're sending their kid to come and play for you, and they're all valid questions. Whereas I think because there a lot of times internationally, your child's in that 17 to 18 range where you want them to kind of fend for themselves. Sometimes they don't want to overstep. Whereas I don't think in that recruiting process, like a parent should never feel like they're overstepping. Like obviously there's a fine line. You want your kid to have a relationship and build a relationship with this coach and these players who are playing. But like if you are given the floor to ask questions as a parent, and I think it's very different when you're asking questions as a parent as in regards to you're speaking for your kid. You know what I'm saying? And I think I don't think there's anything wrong with in that moment, because at the end of the day, like, some people might not understand it, some people will, but yeah, the fact of sending your child 3,000, 5,000 miles away is extremely daunting and risky. But at the same time too, like you want your kid to have the best opportunity that's best for them. And we, you obviously want your child to be successful. And I think as college coaches, everybody, for the most part, I would hope people would understand that. And I think too, especially with Zoom, like you can, if I was in my picture on, you wouldn't really be able to tell my like uncomfortable when you ask me a question, but like, you can see like, it's not face to face and it's not in person, but like, it's definitely changed the game having these Zooms and these like face to face things where you kind of speak to people. And I think British people are better at it. I think people who are not necessarily English speaking get a little nervous, and I think that can be hard for people, but I think to write down questions and do research and that's an opportunity to ask. I don't think anything, if people care about the right stuff, that I don't think there should be any question off the table when you're recruiting somebody. Personally,
nice. I like that. That's a good one. Trying to get the parents to be, I guess, don't be afraid to be parents, especially in that recruiting period. Ask questions, do your due diligence, and I guess any program or coach that's got an issue with it isn't probably somewhere where you want to be sending your kid to anyway. Do you know what I mean? I think, the majority of times, or a portion of times, especially if a coach has children themselves or a family, they should understand the concern of a parent. So I think you're exactly right, Coach. Great points there. Last question, my favorite question. I always ask this. You're getting in 18, 19-year-olds, they're living away from home. As you said, 3, 5, 7,000 miles away from home, different time zones. As a young adult, there's a load of distractions. There's a loads of situations that come up, and they don't have their support system, their regular support system around, family, friends, whatever. When these, especially freshmen, dealing with access to drugs, access to alcohol, and sexual relationships, which will distract them. What advice do you have to those athletes that, you know, are just seeing these things, you know, firsthand, or, you know, they don't have the same level of support around? What would you advise them?
I think surrounding yourself with good people is important. I think communication with your support system. I think a lot of, when I came here, I just kind of like didn't call my parents, which was really wrong. And they had no idea, like they were worried. And obviously it's a lot easier. I think still you're far away, but like communication, like I feel like you have to trust what you were brought up, and you have to trust what's right. Like not everybody knows what's right and wrong. I think it's hard because people are going to make mistakes. I think you have to own your mistakes, and I think you have to own your actions and learn from them. But I think you also should, if you're a college athlete, kind of know what you have to lose. And I think that's a big thing that, you know, with social media and stuff that we talk about, is we ask, what's happening? Would you want it on the front page of a newspaper? What's happening? Would you want to tell your grandma? Like little things like that. I know it sounds really silly. Like I actually got that from Wagner. Like when we worked there, we would talk about social media and making these decisions. And because you're going to live, but no, you have to know as an athlete and understand you are under a microscope, and what are you going to lose? Because once it's gone, it's really hard to get back. And I think like, I've seen, you know, through good and bad, I've seen some really bad decisions made by young people, and I've seen some kids that have really stood up and had some really difficult times. And at the end of the day, I think you'll always find a way and you get through, but it's like, what are you willing to give up for those? You have to make sacrifices at the end of the day, being a college athlete, and it's what's important to you. And basically you have to, from my opinion, you have to own your actions. You've got people over here that are in your corner to help you, but at the end of the day, you're a college athlete, you're not above the law. And you've got things to lose, and you've got to understand that from an early age. And I think if you're in the right program, you're guided from day one in those areas about making those decisions.
Beautiful. Definitely. The point of understanding what you have to lose, I think that should and does resonate with a lot of young athletes. And, you know, I don't think anyone expects an international, or any student at that point, but I don't think anyone expects any student to be perfect in terms of not having parties, not having interests, not experimenting or whatever, but understanding, you have a lot more to lose than someone that isn't on a scholarship. And even those that are on a scholarship, you know, flying you to and from is often expensive enough. So, you know, having that on your shoulders. So yeah, just being smart about what you're doing, and obviously you want to perform. So, you know, you make sure that you're not drunk and trying to go to practice, or you've had some sleep, or, you know, you are taking care of your body. So I think that is some great points again, Coach. Amazing. Last one, not a question, but can you tell us, can you tell us a little bit about your program? And you know, let's say a young lady's watching this right now, thinking of schools to attend and what programs. Can you tell us why St. Francis would be a great option?
Yeah, St. Francis is about family. It's located in Brooklyn Heights. It's one of the most beautiful campuses. The girls have dorms on the promenade. You get an unbelievable view of New York City. You get to live probably the closest you'll ever have to living in New York City experience. The league we play in is unbelievably competitive. Anyone can beat anybody on any given night. There's not just one team that's going to win the conference. It's super competitive. You're challenged. We have a wide variety of academic options, which is great. And then our biggest thing is the team and our head coach. We have an unbelievable head coach that understands balance and what it's really like to be a student athlete. She's all about empowering young women, and what happens after basketball is important to her. And then just the school and the support alone is unreal. Like, I know the president of the college, he knows me by name. The athletic director has been at the school for over 40 years. She played at the college. She's in the Hall of Fame. She was a basketball coach there. It's a very, when you say family, that's not a word that we just throw around. Like, we mean it. And our girls are really, really great people. They're very good at basketball, but they are really great people. And we are building a program that we're really excited about in the future.
Beautiful. That is amazing. Coach, thank you so much for your time. You have been amazing. Sorry to put you on the spot on some of those questions, but it's absolutely great, especially having someone of your caliber. And we didn't even mention the national team stuff, either. So someone like yourself who's been around at various different levels. Thank you for taking time out and spending with us.
No worries. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast. All right, this is Jen Leedham, Associate Head Coach at St. Francis College in Brooklyn, and you've been EuroStepping, and always remember, keep working hard.
Appreciate you watching the EuroStepping.
I want to thank everybody for watching EuroStepping.
Watching the EuroStepping.
The EuroStepping.
The EuroStepping.
You've been watching the EuroStepping.
The EuroStepping.
EuroStepping.
You've been watching the EuroStepping, a great podcast show hosted by Coach D.